Joining us now here on the Rich Eisen Show, the day after Kobe's passing. Again, I still can't believe I'm saying those words. And a day after delivering that moving preamble prior to the Knicks and Nets, a day after calling LeBron's passing Kobe to become the third all-time leading scorer in the NBA, as a longtime voice of the NBA and the NBA Finals on ESPN and ABC. Mike Breen, how are you today, Mike?
Well, Rich, you wake up and you hope that you just had a nightmare, and it's true. It's still the next day. It's still very hard to believe that he's gone.
I had the same feeling today. It just washed over me that I can't believe that happened yesterday. And I guess let's start with what it was like in that building with the players and everybody else in Madison Square Garden. It was a very moving tribute by the Knicks and Dolan to go and lend the world's most famous arena to that moment. Mike, what was it like?
I've never experienced anything like it. I've been doing Knick games for 28 years, and there was just this overwhelming sadness in the locker room, certainly. And you look at coaches, you talk to players, the fans. It just was. The whole place just had this feeling of shock, and I give credit to the players and the coaches for going out and playing that game, and they did the best they can. But it never felt like the game mattered to anybody. Certainly not the players, and for us broadcasting the game, as I referenced, it's like you just didn't want to be there. You didn't want to be doing the game, and I know a lot of the players felt the same way. So, it was just difficult because of who he was. I mean, listen, as I said on the air, we all deal with loved ones who pass away. We all deal with family and friends and their deaths, and those deaths are just as tragic and they're just as sad. But for basketball fans, what he represented to the sport that we all loved, that I've loved as a kid, that you've loved since you were a kid, very few others have represented the sport the way he did. And because of his personality and his charisma and his flair and his joy of the game, I mean, that's the thing that always stuck out to me. If there wasn't an NBA, he'd be playing in the park 7 days a week because he loved the game so much. And I think because of that, because of who he is, it really was somebody who touched so many fans.
Mike Breen here on the Rich Eisen Show, and it's we're from the same area, Mike. We're both from the New York City area and of the same age. And you mentioned Thurman Munson again, and what you just said before tip-off on Sunday. It resonated with me because when he died in a plane crash, it left me with that feeling too that the world had been turned upside down. I was much younger then. But just that somebody that you saw and admired and was so full of life and so full of vigor that person would be taken away. It's just so mind-numbing. And I give you the floor on who Kobe was and how you learned more about him as you got to call more and more of his playoff games and eventually 2 of his finals championships, Mike.
Well, he was one of those players that you thought was indestructible, and that's what makes the news yesterday so difficult. And the fact, of course, there's 3 young children who had their lives ahead of them. That's what just completely breaks your heart. But from a Kobe standpoint, he was indestructible. That no matter what would happen, he'd figure it out. He'd figure out how to win. He'd figure out how to get better. There was always a way to get around whatever adversity that he dealt with on the basketball court. But again, the 2 things that stick out to me was, as I mentioned, that love of the game. I mean, it just was a pure, unrequited love that he had. And the second is that even with all the talent, and he had so much God-given talent, and with all the success that he had, both individually and team-wise, the thing that made him special to me was there was not a player in the NBA who worked harder, not a single one. Some maybe came close to working as hard, but nobody worked harder. I remember after he won the finals in 2009, and that was a finals that meant so much to him because it was the first one where it was just his team. He took his family to Disney for a little vacation, like right after the finals. and the kids were very small then. I think he just had the two girls at the time. And I was told that, the park didn't open until 8 o'clock. But he would get up on this vacation at 6 o'clock, and this is like a couple of weeks after the finals, and go work out at the Orlando Magic's facility, get his workout in, work on the things that he had, and be back in time to get the kids to the park by the time it opened. I mean, it's the kind of work ethic that I think everybody, whether you're a Laker fan, a Kobe fan or not, you respect it so much, because the reason he was so great, the reason he achieved all that he achieved, was because he simply worked harder than everybody else.
Mike Breen here on the Rich Eisen Show. And another part of his legacy, I mean, you could make the case. We all know, obviously, Magic and Larry and Jordan made the game bigger, and it made it huger and began to grow it internationally with the Dream Team. But when it fully bloomed as an international sport, you could say Kobe was center stage. He was right there for all of that. And you told a great story during yesterday's game about his influence and his legacy on the international stage when you were in a cab, I guess. And I'd love for you to tell that story here too, Mike.
It was in 2008, the Olympics in Beijing, and I was in the cab, and the cab driver didn't hardly spoke any English, but he saw that I had an NBC and an NBA jump or pullover or whatever I had on, and he turned and he pointed to it and he said, "NBA, Kobe Bryant, Kobe Bryant." And I nodded to him and smiled and said, "Yep, Kobe Bryant, the NBA." And he asked me, he goes, "Do you know Kobe Bryant?" And when I told him that I did, that I had just spoken to him the day before or whatever, he broke down and sobbed. Now, this is not a little kid. This is a 35-year-old man who was crying because he met somebody who met Kobe Bryant. Not that he met Kobe Bryant, that somebody who had been in contact with Kobe Bryant was enough to get him, like, just over the moon in terms of emotions. He was crying in the cab, and that really struck me on two things. Number one, on how the game had just completely exploded globally, and his reach and his able to connect with so many fans around the world.
So what do you have for me basketball-wise, too? Moments where you're at the mic and Kobe nails the shot, puts the team on his shoulders, does the Kobe thing. What do you got for me on that front? You jog your memory here, Mike.
Those Olympics, in the gold medal game, they're playing Spain. And remember, it's coming off an Olympics that didn't quite go so well in 2004 in Athens. And Spain is playing a great game, and it's like a 2-point game with, I don't know, 7 minutes to go, 6 minutes to go. And he just hit so many big shots down the stretch and so many passes. Set up Dwayne Wade a couple of times. It was a typical performance. And here, you have a roster full of all-stars, and he just said, "It's my turn," and took over. And winning the gold medal and representing the United States meant so much to him. And that was the Olympics that it really came back, where the players now started to realize this is an honor and a responsibility to play for your country in the Olympics. And he took that responsibility. He won the game down the stretch. I mean, there's so many games like that, but that's one that really sticks out to me.
Well, I mean, the whole "it's my turn" that was part of his brand, Mike. I mean, and it rubbed some people the wrong way when he first starting in Madison Square Garden in the All-Star game. He's waving Karl Malone off the blocks. And it's like, well, it's my turn.
Clyde was saying last night that he remembers when he first saw Kobe, and Kobe had such respect for Walt Frazier, that he said was he a cocky kid? Holy mackerel. Right. And he was. And then that cockiness turned into this confident presence when he walked out on the floor. Very few athletes have had that when they walk out on the floor and the opponent looks at them and you're saying, how am I going to beat this guy? And I think that his presence and his confidence is what intimidated a lot of players even before the ball was thrown up.
Well, before I let you go here, Mike, and I appreciate you taking the time, Mike Breen here on the Rich Eisen Show. What about you personally? You ever have a quiet moment with him before or after a game, walking down a tunnel, walking in an arena, anything that can I guess bring this perhaps into a finer point, this conversation?
Well, we we did a Q&A at the Las Vegas Summer League 2 years ago. So we had a chance before, and there was a little backstage area before we came out and did the Q&A for the people. And we started talking about our daughters. And my daughter, she works for the NBA, and we have a great connection because of basketball. And that's what he talked about with his daughter. And that's the thing I keep thinking of, is how much his connection with basketball with his daughter and my daughter. And it was just a neat moment. And one of the real sad things is I don't think since he retired, and I was wondering about him, Rich, because, basketball meant so much to him. How would his post-retirement go? And his post-retirement was fantastic for him from a standpoint of, I don't think I've ever seen him happier or never more at peace. And one of the reasons was because the way he connected with his family and his children and his daughter and basketball. It was wonderful to see. So that's the memory that I'll take.
Yeah, and I had a chance, and we started the show with this conversation in 2018, and the rumor was that around Los Angeles, a lot of hopeful Laker fans, that he would just suit up one more time, whether it was in 8 or 24, just to team up with LeBron. What a dream it would be for fans, and everybody just was assuming that would be a normal thing for Kobe to entertain, because why wouldn't he want to do it? I mean, why wouldn't he want to try one more time? And he bristled. He said that was basically an insult to him, and he was going to take it upon himself to show every athlete that had trouble transitioning from being an athlete into doing something else. He was going to show everybody that it's fine for an athlete to leave behind the playing career and try something else, that it is possible to do something, that you aren't defined by just being an athlete. And it blew me away. I mean, and I got the Mamba mentality right there and then, right there, Mike, and it was obvious.
He may have been busier after he retired than he was when he was playing basketball, because he had so much going on. Yeah, it's funny, Rich. The way we feel about our sports stars, it's kind of like the way you feel about your favorite singers or your favorite bands is, sports and music. They have this ability to move us that you don't even understand. The sports, the teams we root for, the players we root for, the music we listen to, it gets in our hearts, it gets in our soul, and it becomes so important part of your life. And sometimes it sounds trivial, but that's the way it is. It just finds a way to become such an important part of your life. And why some athletes become more of that than others, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but he was one for so many people, for so many fans. In my years doing the NBA, he was as important a figure to the NBA fans than any player. I mean, obviously Michael before and LeBron after, but he's right there.
Mike, thanks for the time. Again, I know you're a busy man, and you also have a lot going on between your temples as you broadcast yesterday. It is not easy to humanize a situation like that and include yourself in the process and include everybody in the process by doing that. You are terrific at what you do. I feel that way, and I just want to say that because as we saw yesterday, life's too short, man. So you got to say those things to people. So thanks again.
I so appreciate you, Rich. Thank you.
Right back at you. That's Mike Breen right here on The Rich Eisen Show, the day after the passing of Kobe Bryant.